Hey guys, tonight you find yourself standing beneath the shadow of a monastery wall while winter presses against the world like a cold iron lid. Snow powders the battlements, river mist curls beyond the frozen reeds, and your boots carry enough mud to suggest that medieval travel brochures really oversold this experience. Inside the gate, torchlight trembles over wet stone. Horse breath drifts white in the yard. Damp straw clings to your cloak. Smoke gathers in the rafters, and distant bells move through the darkness with the slow patience of something that has been ringing long before your birth. You draw your fur-lined collar tighter and admit gently that you probably would not last a week out here. The bread is coarse, the blankets are suspicious, and nobody has invented central heating, sensible dentistry, or dry socks. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments where you are listening from and what time it is there. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The gate closes behind you with the complaint of oak and iron. A lay brother takes your reins and leads your mare toward a low stable where hay steams beneath the animals. The dog is not yours. It followed you for 3 miles, accepted half your bread, and now believes hospitality applies to muddy paws. You cross toward the guest house. Rushlights glow behind horn-covered windows, amber against the blue night. Near the kitchens, onions simmer in pottage. Smoked fish hangs from a beam, and a novice carries trenchers while trying not to spill ale from a clay jug. He fails quietly, the preferred monastic manner of failing. The monastery bells mark Compline. Their sound rolls through passages over the cloister garth and across the white fields. You duck beneath an arch as snow melts from your hood. Cold hands guide you toward a bench beside the hearth, where wool blankets, coarse bread, and barley broth wait without ceremony. The broth tastes mostly of barley and hope. Still warmth returns to your fingers. Beeswax candles burn more cleanly than tallow, though the monastery uses them sparingly. One half-consumed candle stands beside a reliquary said to contain a thread from St. Brendan's cloak. No one can quite agree whether it is sacred cloth, ordinary wool, or something clipped from a saddle blanket. The brothers bow anyway. Certainty, you understand, is a luxury much like pepper. Across the room sits a monk who has not bowed. He is narrow as a quill, wrapped in a dark habit polished at the elbows with ink stains on 3 fingers. His nose seems designed for disapproval. While the others eat, he watches you over a wooden cup. At his feet rests an iron-bound chest. When the guest master leaves, the monk rises. You came by the northern road, he says softly. You nod. He asks whether you passed the shrine beneath the split ash tree. You remember its faded saint frozen ribbons and a horseshoe nailed upside down to keep spirits from entering travelers' dreams. Some swear that iron confuses ghosts. Others insist ghosts understand horseshoes but avoid them from good manners. The monk listens, then touches the iron key hanging from his belt. His name is Brother Anselm. He keeps maps, copies, travellers' accounts, and has discovered that the world is stranger than abbots prefer. He glances toward the door before unlocking the chest. Inside lie folded parchments, letters, wax tablets, pilgrim badges, and one book wrapped in sealskin. The cover is pale and cracked its corners, reinforced with tarnished brass. When he places it upon the table, dust rises, though the book smells damp with sea air. Salt smoke and old leather mingle with the steam of your broth. Brother Anselm calls it a Northern Atlas. The first map shows no familiar kingdom. Inked coastlines wander beside forests, immense rivers, islands shaped like sleeping beasts, and a gulf wide enough to swallow counties. Painted ships lean beneath waves. Along the margins stand fur-robed figures, antlered animals, silver fish, and birds. At the top, in faded red, is written a name the monk pronounces carefully: Canada. The word seems to belong to wind. You move closer to the half-burned candle. Brother Anselm turns a stiff page, revealing notes copied in several hands. One scribe describes winter so deep that doors vanish beneath snow. Another writes of timber towns, harbours and bells. A third records performers' firemen tavern anger, and a riot begun by men wearing painted faces. You look at the monk. He looks back with complete seriousness. Those who tell the tale never fully agree on who threw the first insult, who struck first, or whether the clowns were as troublesome as witnesses claimed. Yet the riot, Brother Anselm insists, happened. So did other things in the Atlas, a contest created by a dead man's will. Children displayed behind guarded gates, a fugitive crossing frozen wilderness, a bridge that failed twice, a statesman consulting ghosts, and thieves stealing a fortune in maple syrup. You suspect the monk has tasted medicinal cordial. He denies this before you ask. Outside, wind moves around the towers. The dog settles beneath your bench and sighs into the rushes. Brother Anselm turns another page. The painted road begins beside a walled town under a sign showing a dancing bear and 3 red bells. Toronto, he whispers. The name is unfamiliar, but the road beneath it looks like every road you distrust, muddy, crowded, tolled, and likely to contain a broken cartwheel. You pull the blanket closer, while the last bell fades. The Atlas lies open between you, and the candle flame bends northward, though no window is open. Even now it is hard to tell whether this is a draught, a trick of heat, or the book breathing beneath its sealskin cover. Brother Anselm places one stained finger upon the town. By dawn, he says, the market gates will open, circus wagons will arrive, and the strangest riot you have heard will begin. For now you listen to the fire settle, the pages rustle, and snow whisper against stone. The candle gutters once steadies and throws Toronto across the parchment in amber light. Brother Anselm presses his palm against the Atlas, and the monastery room loosens around you. The soot-black rafters draw away. The dog lifts its head, while bells become wagon wheels clattering over rutted earth. you find yourself walking toward a walled town beneath a grey summer dawn. The snow is gone, though the road remains determined to ruin your boots. Mud sucks at the soul's carter. Axles groan and market folk crowd beneath the gate with baskets, cages and barrels. A toll-keeper collects coins from merchants who complain as if performing sacred duty. Above him hangs an iron key, large enough to open the town. The sign beside the gate bears the name Toronto. It is no stone keep from an old kingdom. Yet the atlas makes it one timber houses rise like Guildhall's chimneys smoke above crowded lanes, and watchmen lean beneath awnings while rain threatens. You pass coarse bread, smoked fish, and a barber displaying leeches in a jar. He promises they cure headaches and melancholy. The leeches appear unconvinced. Ahead, bright wagons enter the square. Painted panels show lions, acrobats, horses, and clowns with red cheeks. The crowd is mostly grown townsfolk, apprentices, sailors, labourers, and off-duty firemen. Bells jingle from harnesses, a brass horn sounds. Rain beads upon canvas tents while stable hands lead tired horses behind a tavern. Brother Anselm's voice reaches you like a whisper through stone. The year is 1855, he says, though the atlas clothes every age in old wool and candle smoke. A travelling circus has come to town. Its performers carry trunks, costumes, juggling clubs, ropes, and grudges. The local firemen carry pride, strong shoulders, and more free time than wisdom. You follow the dog beneath the sign of the Black Swan Tavern. Inside, the air is thick with wet wool, ale, tobacco, and meat broth. Rushes cover the floor in the older manner, though no one can quite agree whether they have been changed recently or merely turned over to reveal a less alarming side. At one table sit several circus men. Their faces are scrubbed clean of paint, but traces of white remain near the ears. One is broad and quiet. Another wears a striped waistcoat. A third rolls a wooden ball between his palms, as if preparing to juggle trouble itself. Across the room gather members of a volunteer fire company. They drink from heavy mugs beneath painted helmets hung upon pegs. These are not meek parish brothers arriving with buckets. They are proud, competitive men whose companies race one another toward fires, arguing over who may claim the honor of saving a burning building. Some swear that firemen fought rival crews before fighting flames. The broken furniture suggests such stories are not entirely inventions. The first words are too quiet for you to hear. Perhaps someone insults a performer. Perhaps a fireman mocks a clown. Perhaps the disagreement begins over a card game, a woman, a wager, or an unpaid drink. Those who tell the tale never fully agree. What they agree upon is that tempers rise quickly. A mug lands hard upon the table. A chair scrapes. The tavern keeper pauses with a trencher in his hands, wearing the expression of a man who has just remembered that every cup in the room belongs to him. Rain ticks softly upon the tavern shutters. You move closer to the hearth where a pot of pottage bubbles beside onions and salt pork. The dog retreats beneath a bench. One circus man stands. A fireman stands opposite him. They are nearly nose to nose, which is rarely the beginning of a hymn. The fight begins without ceremony. There is shoving, swinging, stumbling, and the collapse of a small table that has remained neutral throughout. Ale spills into the rushes. A helmet rolls beneath your boots. Someone loses a coat. The clown in the striped waistcoat steps aside so neatly that a charging man embraces a pillar instead. No blood is described in Brother Anselm's account, and you are grateful. The violence remains loud, but blurred more like thunder behind thick curtains. Circus performers defend one another. Firemen call for friends. The tavern keeper calls for everyone to leave, which is ignored with democratic fairness. By the time the watch arrives, the room is wrecked. The performers slip away toward their tents. The firemen withdraw into the rain, nursing bruises and dignity. Yet the quarrel does not end. It settles into the town like smoke beneath rafters. The following day the circus opens. You walk through the wet square as merchants raise awnings and ring small bells. Bakers set out loaves. A woman pins a pilgrim badge shaped like a shell to her cloak, though there is no pilgrimage nearby. She says it protects against sudden storms and dishonest entertainers. A man selling charms offers one against clowns. Business is excellent. Inside the circus ground, horses circle beneath torchlight. Acrobats climb ropes. Musicians play. The clowns reappear in paint, smiling with the determination of saints in a doubtful reliquary. Beyond the canvas, however, firemen gather. Word has spread. Friends arrive from other companies. The crowd thickens. Stones lie too conveniently near several hands. The town authorities sense trouble and choose the traditional method of authority, standing nearby and hoping it becomes someone else's responsibility. When the show ends, performers begin packing. The firemen advance. Canvas snaps in the wind, lanterns sway. You hear boots, angry voices, and poles falling. The dog presses against your leg. Circus men defend the wagons while townsfolk scatter. Some swear weapons are drawn, others insist fists and clubs do most of the work. No one agrees whether the police are overwhelmed, unwilling, or cautious enough to value sleep. The circus finally retreats. Wagons roll from Toronto under darkness, wheels striking stones, animals restless in their traces. Behind them remain broken benches, torn canvas, bruised pride, and a story so absurd that it sounds invented by an alehouse poet. You follow until the gate closes. Then the atlas page turns by itself. The road beyond Toronto narrows into pine forest. Rain becomes wood smoke. Somewhere ahead axes ring, and above a lumber camp gate hangs the carved shape of a pig. The carved pig swings above the road, creaking on two iron hooks while evening gathers between the pines. Its wooden snout points east, its painted eyes stare west, and neither direction appears especially trustworthy. Beneath it, carts laden with timber descend toward a settlement built around sawdust mud and the patient ruin of boots. You follow the dog beneath the gate. The air smells of resin, wet bark, smoke, and horses. Axes ring from the forest with an almost monastic rhythm, though the men show little interest in fasting. Loggers in wool caps carry peavies over their shoulders. Teamsters guide heavy horses between stacks of pine. Near the river, squared timbers wait to be floated downstream when the water rises. Brother Anselm's voice returns through the whispering Atlas. The place lies in Canadian timber country, where settlements grow around mills and vanish when the best trees are gone. The men measure distance by rivers, seasons by ice, and character by returned axes. Bread is coarse, salt pork is common, and tea strong enough to polish iron is considered comforting. At the center of the camp stands a long bunkhouse with soot-black rafters. Inside, damp mittens hang above a stove. Straw mattresses line the walls. A cook stirs peas, barley, and pork, while insisting nutmeg prevents frostbite. No one can quite agree whether he believes this or simply enjoys controlling the nutmeg. You accept a wooden bowl and sit beside the hearth. The carved pig belongs to the Northern Lumber Company. It began, according to one old teamster, as a joke made during a winter when snow buried the road signs. A bored carpenter carved a cedar pig, painted it red, and hung it above the gate. Others say it honored a prize boar that once escaped into the forest and survived until spring. Whatever its beginning, the pig becomes a symbol. The northern men touch its hoof before entering the woods. They claim it brings clear weather, sharp blades, and safe river crossings. A logger who forgets the gesture must turn around and do it properly, even if a sleigh team waits behind him. Medieval saints have endured stranger devotions, and the pig appears less demanding than most abbots. Across the river operates a rival camp. Its gate bears a painted white pine. Its owner competes for timber rights, mill contracts, workers, and the admiration of the settlement's widowed storekeeper. The widow, Mistress Bell, appears to admire prompt payment more than either owner, but rivalry rarely permits evidence to interfere. The trouble begins when the pig disappears. At dawn, the northern men gather beneath empty hooks. Snowmelt drips from the gate. A single shaving of cedar lies in the mud. The cook crosses himself. The teamster removes his cap. Someone whispers that a camp without its luck will lose horses, logs, and perhaps the spring drive. You look toward the river. On the opposite bank, the white pine sign now wears a red wooden tail. The insult is carefully arranged and impossible to ignore. The northern foreman sends 2 men to demand the pig's return. They cross by ferry carrying an iron lantern and a written message, because formal outrage feels more impressive on paper. The rival foreman reads it beside his stove, folds it neatly, and says he has seen no pig. Behind him, something under a wool blanket appears, shaped like a pig. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether the theft was planned by the rival owner, carried out by mischievous workers, or performed by boys hoping for entertainment. They agree that the denial makes everything worse. That night, the northern camp steals the white pine sign. By morning, it stands beside the bunkhouse, wearing a cook's apron and a crown made from barrel hoops. Someone has carved a speech scroll beneath it, declaring that all southern axes are dull. The southern men respond by removing the northern camp bell. Without the bell, meals begin, late shifts overlap, and 3 men arrive for breakfast at midnight. Retaliation becomes ritual. A sled vanishes and returns painted with flowers. A barrel of nails appears on a roof. Boots are exchanged between bunkhouses. A horse is decorated with ribbons, then escorted home with the dignity of a visiting bishop. One side blocks the timber road with an enormous snow figure shaped like a pig. The other adds spectacles and names it after the northern owner. For several days the feud remains almost cheerful. Then spring rain swells the river. Both companies must move their timber before the current becomes dangerous. Logs jam against a narrow bend, piling one upon another, until the river groans beneath them. Each camp accuses the other of causing the blockage. Men arrive with poles, hooks, and tempers sharpened by sleepless nights. You stand upon the bank under cold rain. The dog shelters beneath an overturned skiff. Workers face one another across the jam. The northern foreman carries the stolen white pine sign like a shield. The southern foreman holds the pig beneath one arm. Its red paint is scratched, one ear chipped, yet its expression remains smugly calm. For a moment the settlement expects battle. Mistress Bell arrives instead. She crosses the muddy bank in a dark cloak lined with rabbit fur, carrying the account book from her store. She announces that both camps owe her money. If either side damages the bridge, the ferry, the timber, or one another, she will add the cost to their debts with interest. Silence follows. Even now it is hard to tell whether peace comes from reason, shame, exhaustion, or fear of bookkeeping. The men lower their poles. The 2 foremen exchange signs. The pig returns to its hooks. Together both camps break the logjam before sunset. That evening they share pottage, smoked fish, and ale beneath the bunkhouse rafters. Someone repairs the pig's ear with an iron nail. Someone else paints the white pine brighter than before. The widow accepts 3 payments and refuses a marriage proposal. Rain softens on the roof. Brother Anselm turns the atlas page and the carved pig fades into candlelight. Beyond the next road waits a manor with shuttered windows, a dead lawyer's sealed will, and a city about to discover that inheritance can be stranger than war. The manor appears at the end of a rain-dark avenue, its chimneys leaning above bare trees, and its shuttered windows reflecting the last grey light. Water runs from stone gargoyles into a courtyard where servants carry ledgers, sealed boxes, and armfuls of damp firewood beneath their cloaks. You enter behind Brother Anselm's wavering candle flame. The dog shakes Rain across the threshold with such enthusiasm that a footman looks briefly tempted to resign from history. Rushes lie over the hall floor, newly strewn with rosemary to sweeten the air. Beeswax candles stand in silver holders, and a clock clicks beside an oak door bound with iron. Inside waits the dead lawyer's will. His name is Charles Vance Miller, a wealthy Canadian solicitor with a taste for practical jokes, complicated clauses, and watching respectable people become uncomfortable. He has died. without a wife or children, leaving behind property investments, racing shares, and instructions strange enough to make the scribes blink. A clerk breaks the seal. Around the long table sit lawyers in dark coats, relatives hoping to be remembered reporters drying their hats, and several men who believe every fortune must somehow belong to them. A maid sets down tea, coarse bread, and small cakes. Nobody touches the cakes until the value of the estate is mentioned. The will gives holiday property to clergymen who dislike one another. It leaves brewery shares to ministers known for supporting temperance. It arranges other gifts like riddles hidden in legal wax. Some swear Millar means to expose hypocrisy. Others insist he simply enjoys one final laugh from beyond the grave. Then comes the 10th clause. 10 years after his death, the remaining estate will go to the Toronto mother, who gives birth to the greatest number of children during that decade. For several breaths, only the clock speaks. One lawyer removes his spectacles, cleans them, and reads the clause again. A reporter whispers the words to another reporter. A distant servant drops a spoon. The dog sits beside your wet boots, apparently the only creature in the manor unsurprised by human behavior. Brother Anselm's voice slides through the room. The newspapers soon call it the Great Stork Derby. Across Toronto, the strange bequest becomes gossip in kitchens, churches, tramcars, markets, and boarding houses. The prize may grow into a fortune. Families calculate dates, lawyers study definitions, editors print names and numbers as though recording tournament scores. The city treats childbirth, poverty, and inheritance with the grave excitement usually reserved for royal marriages or escaped bears. You step through the Atlas into a narrow working-class street. Rain taps upon patched roofs. Laundry hangs beneath covered porches. Inside one house, a mother warms her hands over a cast-iron stove while potatoes boil in a blackened pot. Her husband mends a boot by lamplight, wool blankets are folded near a cradle, and a charm of blue thread hangs above the door to guard against fever. The family already has several children. In another age, people might tie an amulet of red coral near a newborn's bed, believing it protects against illness and wandering spirits. Here mothers still trust prayers, mustard poultices, herbal teas, and advice passed from neighbors who disagree about nearly everything. No one can quite agree whether onions in a room prevent sickness or merely make everyone smell equally unfortunate. As the years pass, several women become leading claimants. Their names fill columns, doctors sign certificates, officials inspect records, neighbors count infants, miscarriages, stillbirths, and disputed births with an intimacy that would make a monastery confessor blush. The competition is not a cheerful race arranged by laughing mothers. It is shaped by hard rent, crowded rooms, illness loss, and the dangerous hope that one impossible inheritance might lift a family from want. You follow one claimant through a winter morning. Her name is Annie Smith. Snow lies against the windows. She feeds children porridge from chipped bowls while an older daughter rocks a baby near the stove. Steam fogs the glass. A market bell rings beyond the street, calling vendors into the cold. Another claimant, Grace Bagnato, lives beneath even harsher scrutiny. Questions arise about her husband, her legal status, and whether every child qualifies under the wording of the will. Courts begin deciding matters that feel too private for courtrooms and too human for ledgers. Lawyers argue over the meaning of mother. They argue over marriage legitimacy, residence, survival, and dates. They examine records while mothers wait outside in fur-lined coats, rubbing cold fingers together. Every answer produces another question, and every question produces another billable hour, the most reliable child of any legal dispute. By 1936, the 10-year period ends. Toronto gathers around newspapers as though awaiting the result of a siege. 4 women appear to have given birth to 9 qualifying children. Each Annie, Smith Kathleen, Nagel, Lucy Timleck, and Isabel McLean. Other women bring claims, some nearly equal, some challenged, some settled outside court. The judges do not crown one single victor. After legal battles, settlements, and negotiations, the estate is divided. The 4 principal winners each receive a large share, enough to alter the shape of their households. 2 other women receive smaller settlements after their claims are disputed. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether Millar expected the clause to survive, whether he meant it as satire, or whether he predicted newspapers would turn private hardship into public spectacle. Even now it is hard to tell whether the joke belongs to the dead lawyer, the courts, or a society eager to count mothers without carrying their burdens. The rain stops over the manor. The will folds itself beneath the clerk's hands. Candles shorten. Outside, Toronto's chimneys fade into a pale northern morning. You hear children waking behind thin walls, spoons against bowls, boots crossing floors, and mothers beginning another day long after the reporters have gone. For a while you remain beside the cold hearth, listening as servants extinguish lamps one by one. The dog curls upon the rosemary rushes, dreaming perhaps of cakes nobody remembered to guard after the reading. Brother Anselm closes the legal page. The atlas opens farther north, where 5 identical cradles stand behind a locked gate. Visitors gather by the thousands, and a childhood becomes something displayed like a royal relic. The 5 cradles wait beneath a row of narrow windows, each covered by a white wool blanket and each rocking slightly, though no hand touches them. Beyond the locked gate, morning frost clings to the fence and a long road disappears into pine country under a sky the color of pewter. You step closer, while Brother Anselm's candlelight travels across the atlas. The air smells of boiled linen, soap milk, and wood smoke. Nurses move quietly between the cradles in pale aprons. A stove ticks in the corner. Glass bottles stand in careful rows beside folded cloths. Spoons, scales, and jars of cod liver oil. On the wall hangs a small religious medal intended to guard the room against illness storms and the sort of official visitor who carries too many papers. The babies are the Dion quintuplets. They are born in 1934 near the village of Corbeil in northern Ontario in a farmhouse where spring mud fills the yard and cold air still presses beneath the door. Their mother, Elzia, expects one child. Instead, 5 daughters arrive tiny and premature: Yvonne, Annette, Cecile, Emily, and Marie. No one expects all 5 to survive. The local doctor, Alan Roy Defoe, works by lamplight with nurses, neighbours, warm blankets, and whatever practical help can be gathered. The babies are kept in wicker baskets near the stove. Heated bricks wrapped in cloth provide warmth. Corn syrup, water milk, and careful feeding become part of their fragile routine. Some swear that the farmhouse kitchen feels like a chapel during those first nights, with every whisper lowered and every movement measured. You stand beside the blackened stove while wind brushes the walls. The floorboards creak beneath anxious feet. Outside, horses stamp in damp straw. A kettle trembles over the fire. The dog from the monastery has followed you again and now lies near the woodbox, having decided that historical impossibility is no reason to miss breakfast. News spreads with astonishing speed. Reporters arrive along muddy roads. Photographers gather near the house. Letters, gifts, offers, and curious strangers follow. The birth of 5 identical sisters seems miraculous to people accustomed to miracles appearing mostly in stained glass or stories told beside shrines. The family quickly becomes overwhelmed. Their father, Oliver Dion, signs an agreement connected to displaying the babies at the Chicago World's Fair, then tries to cancel it. Officials become concerned that promoters may exploit the children. Yet the solution created by the province soon becomes another form of exploitation, dressed in cleaner linen and stamped with official seals. The Ontario government removes the quintuplets from their parents' legal custody and places them under guardianship. Across the road from the family farmhouse, a special hospital and nursery are built. The compound becomes known as Quintland. High fences surround the grounds. The sisters live under schedules written by doctors and administrators. They sleep, eat, exercise, and play according to the clock, while their parents and older siblings remain painfully close and strangely distant. Monastery bells once marked your hours by prayer. Here, bells and timetables mark bottles, baths, examinations, photographs, and public appearances. The girls wear matching dresses. Their curls are arranged alike. Their speech, weight, health, and behavior are recorded by nurses and officials with ink-stained precision. Then the visitors come. They arrive by car bus and train, gathering in numbers greater than many Canadian towns contain. Observation galleries allow tourists to watch the sisters play behind screens without being seen clearly in return. Souvenir shops sell postcards, spoons, dolls, books, and photographs. Nearby businesses flourish, roads improve, hotels fill. The province earns money from the attraction, At roadside stalls, merchants sell warm pies, knitted mittens, maple sweets, and every imaginable keepsake bearing the famous five faces. You join the quiet stream entering the viewing gallery. A wooden rail guides the crowd beneath a covered passage. Men remove hats, women hold cameras, some carry picnic baskets. Children are lifted for a better look. Beyond the screen, 5 little girls play in a bright courtyard with swings, sand toys, and a shallow pool. They cannot see the watching faces well. The arrangement feels like a royal menagerie translated into a modern age. Medieval courts once displayed unusual animals, foreign gifts, sacred relics, and people considered wonders. Pilgrims bought badges to prove they had seen a saint's shrine. Here, tourists buy five-faced souvenirs to prove they have seen the famous sisters. A vendor offers you a commemorative spoon. You decline, because carrying cutlery bearing the faces of strangers feels like inviting difficult explanations at supper. The girls advertise toothpaste, cereal soap syrup, and other products. Their images appear everywhere. Doctors present their survival as a triumph of science. Politicians present their care as a triumph of government. Tourists present their visit as harmless wonder. Their parents see matters differently. Oliver and Elzea fight for years to regain custody. They argue that their daughters belong with their family, not behind guarded gates. Public sympathy gradually shifts. In 1943, legislation returns custody to the parents, and a large house is built for the reunited family. Yet, reunion does not erase separation. The sisters move into the new home in 1944. Life there is private compared with Quintland, but not peaceful. Later, the women describe unhappiness, harsh treatment, and deep loneliness. Their accounts challenge the cheerful photographs sold during their childhood. Those who tell the tale never fully agree how much each doctor, official, promoter, parent, and visitor understood at the time. Some believed they were protecting the children. Others clearly recognized the fortune surrounding them. Even now it is hard to tell where concern ended and possession began. The viewing gallery empties as evening settles. The swings become still. Nurses gather toys. 5 small coats hang on iron hooks near the door. Beyond the fence, the family farmhouse shows one yellow window across the road, close enough to see and too far to reach freely. You pull your cloak tighter. The dog looks through the screen, then turns away. Brother Anselm lowers his candle, and the locked gate fades into drifting snow. The Atlas carries you northward beyond farms and villages toward a frozen river, where a solitary fugitive vanishes into wilderness and an exhausted patrol follows beneath the Arctic stars. The frozen river opens beneath a sky where every star seems hammered into black iron. Snow covers the banks in blue folds, and spruce trees stand along the valley like silent monks. Your breath clouds before you. The dog's paws make neat holes behind your boots, though he pauses often to reconsider northern travel. Ahead, a cabin crouches beneath the trees. It is barely more than logs, moss, and a roof burdened with snow. No smoke rises from the chimney, no lantern shows behind the shutter, yet tracks lead towards the door, and Brother Anselm's voice reaches you through the cold. The man inside calls himself Albert Johnson. No one can quite agree whether that is his true name. He appears in the Northwest Territories in 1931, buys supplies, and builds a cabin near the Rat River. He speaks little, pays in cash, and avoids company like a hermit who knows neighbours ask questions. The trappers nearby begin complaining. Their traps are disturbed. Snares are sprung. Fur is missing. Suspicion settles upon Johnson because a suspicion like frost chooses the loneliest surface first. A constable travels to the cabin to ask questions, accompanied by another man and a cold that bites through wool. You stand beside them at the door. The constable knocks. No answer comes. He calls Johnson's name, explains the complaint, and waits while the wind moves powder across the clearing. Inside, something shifts. The men knock again. The cabin remains silent. They leave, but they return days later with a search warrant and more officers. This time, when one constable steps towards the door, a shot erupts from inside. The officer falls wounded, not dead, and the patrol withdraws through deep snow. The wilderness becomes a siege. More police arrive with rifles, axes, supplies, and dynamite. They surround the cabin while temperatures sink. The men sleep in fur robes, warm tea over fires, and rub grease upon exposed skin. One carries a rabbit's foot for luck. Another keeps a copper coin inside his mitten, claiming metal warns of frostbite. Some swear dried moss near the chest preserves warmth. The moss offers no opinion. For 15 hours the cabin endures gunfire and blasts. Dynamite tears away part of the roof, logs split, snow collapses inward, yet Johnson remains alive, in a pit dug beneath the floor, protected by earth and timber. When darkness deepens, the police withdraw to regroup. By morning he has vanished. You follow the tracks north. They cross the frozen Rat River, then disappear where wind sweeps the ice clean. Patrolmen search the banks and find almost nothing. Johnson travels without a tent. He builds small fires that leave little ash. He doubles back, circles ridges, and uses caribou trails to confuse pursuit. Those who tell the tale never fully agree how he survives so long. Some say he carries remarkable supplies. Others insist he steals food from trap lines. A few believe he knows the country from earlier years despite claiming to be new. The pursuit stretches across weeks. You move through spruce forest at dawn, over frozen muskeg at noon, and along river ice under moonlight. Police use dog teams, snowshoes, and local trackers. Their coats stiffen with frost. Their eyelashes freeze. Each halt becomes ritual. Clear boots, feed dogs, melt ice, repair harness, swallow tea, and keep mittens near the fire without scorching them. At one camp, a constable shares bannock and smoked meat with you. His hands shake from fatigue. He says Johnson seems able to walk through walls of snow. Then he adds that walls of snow are common here, and therefore less impressive than they sound. The police request help from the sky. A pilot named Wop May joins the search in a small aircraft. From above, he sees trails invisible from the ground, broken branches, camp marks, and lines where someone has crossed the frozen land. His plane circles over valleys while the engine hums like an enormous mechanical bee. The atlas lets you see both views. Below, Johnson moves beneath trees, his dark figure nearly lost among shadows. Above, the aircraft follows the white curves of rivers. The distance between hunter and hunted narrows, then widens, then narrows again. Johnson crosses the Richardson Mountains in winter. The feat seems almost impossible. He climbs through passes where wind strips the snow to hard crust. He descends toward the Eagle River, covering distances that astonish experienced patrolmen. He appears to use old trails, yet no one knows how he learned them. A blizzard arrives. You shelter with the search party beneath canvas stretched between poles. Snow hisses over the roof. Dogs curl nose to tail. A kettle hangs above the fire, and someone drops spruce tips into the water as a remedy against weakness. The drink tastes like a forest trying to become tea. By dawn, the storm clears. Wop May spots Johnson's trail where it crosses caribou tracks. The patrol follows. On February 17, 1932, they catch him near the Eagle River. The final encounter unfolds quickly, though Brother Anselm softens its edges. Shots break the cold silence. One officer is killed. Johnson is struck and dies upon the snow after weeks of pursuit. The dog presses against your leg while the wind carries the echoes away. When the searchers examine Johnson's possessions, they find money, ammunition, a compass, tools, and supplies, but little that explains who he is. His fingerprints produce no answer. Photographs circulate, decades pass. The mystery remains. Some swear he was a fugitive from another crime. Others name missing men, foreign adventurers, or miners. Later investigators study his face-teeth belongings and possible relatives. Even now it is hard to tell whether Albert Johnson was chosen, borrowed, or simply the last door he kept closed. Night settles over the Eagle River. The patrol builds a quiet fire. No one celebrates. Tea steams in cups. Harness bells sound as tired dogs shift in sleep. You warm your hands and watch frost form upon the dead man's coat, covering every clue with white silence. Brother Anselm turns the atlas page. The river widens into a harbour. Winter darkness becomes a pale December morning. Ships rest upon calm water, church bells begin to ring, and somewhere among the warehouses 2 vessels move toward one another with terrible slowness. The harbour lies beneath a pale December sky, holding reflections of masts, warehouses, and church towers. Frost silver coats the wharves, chimney smoke rises straight upward, and the first bells of morning drift over Halifax with the slow certainty of prayer. You stand near the waterfront while carts begin to move. Horses breathe steam into the cold. Dock workers roll barrels across planks slick with ice. Women carry baskets of bread, onions, and salt fish toward market stalls. Sailors stamp warmth into their boots beneath heavy wool coats. Somewhere, a baker lifts coarse loaves from an oven, and a clerk sharpens a pencil, preparing to argue about freight. The date is December 6, 1917. War has filled the harbour with traffic. Halifax is a vital port where ships gather before crossing the Atlantic in convoy. Troop supplies, ammunition, food and fuel pass through its narrow channels. The city wakes each morning to whistles, engines, bells, and the creak of ropes under strain. Brother Anselm's voice moves through the cold air. One ship entering the harbour is the French vessel Mont Blanc. It carries explosives, picric acid, TNT gun cotton, and barrels of benzol secured upon its deck. Another vessel, the Norwegian ship Imo, is leaving after delays. At the Narrows, water signals, schedules, and judgment must fit together carefully. This morning, they do not. You walk beside the quay as sailors raise flags and sound whistles. Orders pass from bridge to deck. The Imo travels faster than expected and occupies an unusual course. The Mont Blanc approaches from the opposite direction. Each crew expects the other to yield. No one can quite agree, even afterward, which decision matters most. Whistles answer whistles. The ships draw closer. Along the waterfront, most people continue their work. A milk wagon rattles over cobbles. A woman opens shutters above a shop. In a nearby kitchen, oatmeal thickens over a stove, while a family argues quietly about who used the last spoon. The two vessels collide at 8:45 in the morning. The impact is not initially enormous. Metal scrapes. The Imo's bow cuts into the Mont Blanc. Barrels shift. Sparks ignite benzol, spilling across the deck. Flames rise quickly bright against the winter grey. The Mont Blanc's crew knows what the ship carries. They abandon vessel and row desperately toward shore, shouting warnings in French. Their words are not understood by everyone. The burning ship drifts toward the Halifax waterfront, pushed by wind and tide. People gather at windows. Workers leave buildings to watch. Families step onto porches. School children turn toward the smoke. Firefighters respond with wagons and equipment, believing they face a dangerous ship fire, not a floating storehouse of explosives. You move with them through the streets. A fire engine jolts over frozen ground. Its bell rings sharply. Men in heavy coats pull hoses toward the quay. One firefighter wears a small medal of St. Florian Protector against fire. Such medals have crossed centuries from shrines and workshops into pockets and watch chains. Some swear the saint guards those who face flames. Others say courage still requires good water pressure. The burning ship reaches Pier 6. Flames climb its rigging, smoke rolls over the harbour, the heat sharpens, windows fill with faces. At 9:35 the Mont Blanc explodes. Brother Anselm closes his hand over the candle flame and the telling becomes muted. The world turns white. A pressure wave races across Halifax. Buildings collapse. Windows shatter across the city. roofs lift, chimneys fall. The harbour floor is briefly exposed as water is driven outward, then a great surge returns against the shore. You hear no sharp cries, only a vast low thunder softened, as if heard beneath layers of wool. Dust fills the lanes. Snow, timber, glass, and smoke move through the air. The dog crouches beside a wall while you shield your face against the blast. For several breaths the city disappears. Then sound returns slowly. Bells ring without hands, horses pull against broken harness, survivors emerge from doorways and cellars, neighbors call names through dust. Fires begin among shattered buildings. Those who can walk start helping those who cannot. Daily life becomes rescue. Kitchen tables become stretchers. Doors are lifted from hinges to carry the injured. Wool blankets are torn into bandages. Churches, schools, and halls open as shelters. Doctors work without rest. Nurses wash wounds with boiled water, while volunteers heat broth and tea over whatever stoves remain standing. Many injuries come from glass because people watched the burning ship through windows. A later blizzard arrives, covering ruins with snow and slowing aid. Yet trains, medical teams, and supplies come from nearby communities. One relief train from Boston brings doctors, nurses, and equipment, beginning a lasting bond between Nova Scotia and Massachusetts. You pass through a temporary shelter inside a church hall. Candles stand in jars. Children sleep beneath coats. A woman presses warm bricks wrapped in cloth against an old man's feet, a remedy as ancient as winter itself. Someone distributes pottage made from oats, potatoes, and scraps of meat. It tastes smoky and thin, but no one complains. Even disaster cannot improve institutional soup. Outside, soldiers clear roads, carpenters board windows, priests, ministers, and ordinary citizens search homes. The harbour is filled with wreckage. The city's north end bears the worst destruction. Those who tell the tale never fully agree on every act of warning, every decision aboard the ships, or every moment before the collision. Courts later assign blame, overturn findings, and argue over responsibility. The facts remain tangled in signals, navigation, wartime pressure, and human error. What remains clear is the scale. Thousands are injured. Nearly 2,000 people die. Families are changed in a single morning. Entire neighborhoods must rebuild through winter. You stand at dusk above the harbor. Snow begins to fall, softening broken roofs and blackened timbers. Along the streets, lanterns move from house to house. Someone finds a church bell beneath rubble. Someone else carries bread into a shelter. In the distance, a surviving clock has stopped at the moment of the blast. Brother Anselm opens the atlas again. The harbour darkens into ink. From beneath the page rises the outline of a vast bridge over the St. Lawrence River, half built against the sky, while iron groans above black water and workers look upward. Iron rises above the St. Lawrence River in dark ribs, each rivet catching the last evening light. Far below, the current moves broad and black between the shores. Barges drift beneath unfinished spans, while hammers ring from platforms suspended over the water. You stand beside a timber hoist with your cloak pulled close. The bridge is meant to be enormous, a steel crossing longer than any cantilever bridge yet built. It will connect communities, carry trains, and prove that engineers can stretch order across a river that has ignored human ambition for centuries. Workers arrive from farms, towns, and distant countries, carrying lunch pails, wool coats, and cautious confidence. Brother Anselm's voice settles among the metal sounds. The year is 1907. The Quebec Bridge grows outward from both banks without supports in the deep channel below. Its great arms extend over the river, relying upon calculations, steel, and faith in drawings made far from the cold wind. Theodore Cooper, the consulting engineer, oversees the design from New York. Local engineers supervise construction while foremen watch crews fit plates and drive rivets. Every morning begins with routines as old as any building site. Men warm hands over braziers, sharpen tools, inspect ropes, and climb ladders glazed with dew. Lunch is coarse bread cheese, smoked meat, and tea carried in dented tins. One worker ties red thread around his wrist because his grandmother says it protects against falling iron. Another keeps a saint's medal inside his shirt. Some swear whistling on a bridge invites the wind to answer. For months the structure advances. Then workers notice something troubling. Several lower beams appear bent. Metal members that should remain straight begin to bow under growing weight. The change is small at first, easy to dismiss as ordinary strain. Reports travel upward through command. Questions move by telegram between offices. No one can quite agree afterward on the precise moment when warning becomes certainty. The bridge's own weight has been underestimated. As more steel is added, stress grows beyond what crucial members can safely bear. Engineers debate whether construction should stop. Messages cross slowly while the bridge continues carrying men, tools, and fresh iron. On August 29th, the bending worsens. A young engineer named Norman McClure sends urgent word to Cooper. Cooper replies that no more load should be added until the facts are examined. Yet the order does not reach every worker in time, and the span is not evacuated. Late afternoon light lies upon the river. You hear a sound like distant thunder inside the steel. A compression member buckles. Another follows. The unfinished southern arm begins to twist. Men look up from rivet gangs and hoists. For a few terrible seconds the frame seems to hesitate as though the bridge itself understands what is happening. Then it falls. Brother Anselm softens the moment beneath the whisper of turning parchment. Steel folds downward in a roaring tangle. Platforms, cranes, tracks, and workers plunge toward the river. The collapse lasts only seconds. When the noise ends, twisted iron lies across the water, like the bones of some impossible beast. Rescue boats push from shore. Workers, families, priests, doctors, and townspeople gather beneath rain and smoke. Bells ring from churches. Lanterns move along the bank as night comes. Of the 86 men on the bridge, 75 die. Many are Mohawk iron workers, from Kahanawake, and the loss wounds their community deeply. In a riverside hall, volunteers spread wool blankets over benches. Soup simmers in pots. A physician uses splints, bandages, and whatever clean linen can be found. An old woman places rosemary beneath the windows, saying the scent guides spirits away from the living. The river carries silence beneath the wreckage. Investigations follow. Engineers calculate again. Testimony fills rooms. The disaster is traced to design errors underestimated, loads weak oversight, and failure to act quickly upon visible warning. The ruined steel remains in the river while Canada decides to build the bridge again. You walk forward through years without leaving the bank. A new design rises beside the wreckage. The replacement is heavier, stronger, and more carefully reviewed. Engineers alter the plan. Workers return. New steel stretches from each shore, and the central suspended span is built separately so it can be lifted into place between the two completed arms. By 1916, the bridge is nearly finished. A huge central section waits upon pontoons below. It measures hundreds of feet and weighs thousands of tons. Tugboats steady it against the current. Workers prepare lifting devices while crowds gather along the shores to watch the final connection. The morning is clear. Flags move in the wind. Families bring baskets and blankets. Vendors sell bread, apples, tea, and commemorative ribbons. One merchant offers iron bridge charms, promising they ensure safe crossings. The claim feels ambitious, considering the bridge has not yet crossed anything successfully. The lifting begins. Slowly, the central span rises from the pontoons. Chains tighten. Steel groans. The section climbs between the cantilever arms while men monitor pins, beams, and lifting equipment. Then one corner drops. A support fails. The enormous span tilts sharply. Workers scramble, signals sound, and the whole central section tears free. It plunges into the St. Lawrence, vanishing beneath spray and foam. 13 men die. The bridge has fallen twice. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether the second disaster came from a casting defect, a failed bearing, or a combination of weaknesses in the lifting apparatus. Investigators study broken components and procedures. Once again, calculations, testimony, and grief gather around the river. Yet construction continues. Another central span is built. In 1917, it is raised successfully. The Quebec Bridge finally joins both shores, its steel silhouette stretching above the water, with the solemn endurance of something that has learned too dearly how to stand. You cross it at dusk. Below, the river moves around fallen metal, still hidden in its depths. Wind passes through the trusses, making a low sound like distant monastery bells. The dog walks close to your leg and avoids looking down. Brother Anselm touches the atlas. The bridge fades behind rain. Ahead, Parliament rises upon a hill, windows bright against winter darkness, while smoke begins curling from a reading room no one yet understands is burning. Smoke curls from the reading room windows in thin grey ribbons, delicate against the February night. Snow still lies upon Parliament Hill, reflecting lamplight from the stone buildings. Sleigh runners whisper across the frozen road, and clerks hurry beneath fur-lined coats, carrying papers tied with tape. You approach the entrance while the dog sniffs the steps. The Parliament buildings stand like a palace for argument. Inside corridors glow with gas lamps. Oak doors open and close beneath arches. Members debate, messengers carry notes, and attendants feed coal into iron stoves. The air smells of wool, ink, leather dust, and the medicinal scent of old books. Brother Anselm's voice moves beside you. The date is February 3rd, 1916. In the House of Commons, politicians sit through a wartime evening. Outside, Canada is deep in winter, and across the Atlantic soldiers fight. Inside Parliament, speeches continue beneath portraits and a ceiling that seems permanent. Near the reading room, however, someone notices flames. The fire appears small, a wastebasket perhaps, a stack of newspapers, a spark near papers, and varnished wood. Those who tell the tale never fully agree where it begins or what first feeds it. An attendant calls for help. Men rush with water. Doors open. Smoke thickens. The reading room contains newspapers, wooden shelves, furniture, and material eager to burn. Flames climb curtains and leap toward the ceiling with frightening speed. You follow clerks into the corridor. A bell rings, another answers. Members turn from debate to confusion. Some gather coats or papers, believing there is time. A few stand beneath the chamber lights and argue whether the alarm is serious, because even fire must apparently wait for parliamentary agreement. Then smoke enters the Commons. People begin evacuating. The corridors fill with footsteps, directions, and the scrape of furniture being moved. Attendants guide members toward exits. Soldiers and police arrive. Fire crews drag hoses through snow while water freezes upon steps and coats. The building's stone walls suggest strength, but the interior holds timber books, paneling, and shafts that carry heat upward. Fire spreads through hidden spaces. The roof begins to glow. You pass a cloakroom where wool coats hang in rows. A clerk snatches one at random and later discovers it belongs to a larger man. Survival-like tailoring sometimes permits looseness. Outside, crowds gather beneath the snow. Flames rise behind windows. Sparks drift over the hill. Firefighters climb ladders while hoses stiffen in the cold. Water streams down the walls and freezes into shining ridges. Church bells sound over Ottawa, calling more assistance. Inside, people remain. Among them is Beau Bowman Law, a member of Parliament who returns to his room. Another is René Laplante, an assistant clerk. Two women visiting the building, Madame Bray and Madame Morin, struggle to escape. The fire's confusion separates people from safe corridors. A librarian named Michael McCormack remembers the iron doors of the Parliamentary Library. The library stands behind the main building, connected by a narrow corridor. Its circular room holds books, documents, carved wood galleries, and shelves rising beneath a domed roof. If flames enter, generations of records may vanish. McCormack orders the iron doors closed. They shut between the burning centre block and the library. Some swear the doors were designed specifically for such danger. Others say luck, quick judgment, and the narrow connecting passage matter equally. Even now, it is hard to tell which single detail saves the collection because disasters rarely respect simple explanations. The fire races on. The house chamber disappears behind flame. Roof beams fail. Portions of the building collapse inward with a deep, muffled roar. Firefighters withdraw from dangerous walls, then return from other angles. Snow melts around their boots and freezes again. You shelter beside a stone balustrade. The dog presses close, shaking soot from his coat. A woman nearby holds a rosary in both hands. A soldier carries a small charm stitched into his sleeve, said to protect against sudden death. Medieval pilgrims once pinned badges to their cloaks for the same reason. Fear changes clothing more readily than habit. By midnight, the heart of Parliament is burning openly. The Victoria Tower, crowned by its clock, stands above the flames for a time. Bells inside strike through smoke. Then the tower weakens. Stone and metal descend into the ruins and the clock stops. 7 people die in the fire. Others escape through windows, stairways, and smoke-filled corridors. Prime Minister Robert Borden watches the destruction from outside. Officials begin asking whether the blaze is accidental or deliberate. Canada is at war. Rumors spread immediately. Some suspect German sabotage. Others blame careless smoking, faulty wiring, overheated pipes, or a discarded match. Newspapers print speculation before ashes cool. Investigators examine debris and testimony, but no clear proof of sabotage emerges. No one can quite agree whether the mystery survives because evidence was destroyed, because witnesses remembered differently, or because wartime fear prefers an enemy to an accident. Morning comes very slowly. The centre block stands gutted beneath a pale sky. Smoke rises from blackened walls. Icicles hang from broken windows. Clerks search for documents. Soldiers guard the site. The library remains standing behind its iron doors, smoke-stained but largely saved. Inside you enter the circular room. Books rest beneath the dome in dim winter light. Beeswax candles burn on desks because electricity cannot be trusted. Ink-stained librarians move quietly among shelves, checking volumes as monks might inspect rescued relics after a raid. One librarian finds soot upon a book of parliamentary procedure and remarks that it has finally encountered excitement. The government continues elsewhere. Debates move into temporary rooms. Plans begin for a new centre block, stronger and more monumental. Stonecutters, architects, masons, and labourers return Parliament to the hill over the following years. Yet the question remains in the ashes: accident or sabotage, carelessness or design. Those who tell the tale never fully agree. You stand beside the closed iron doors while the half-burned candle from Brother Anselm's monastery appears on a reading desk. Its flame bends toward a portrait of a solemn man with deep-set eyes. The portrait blinks. Brother Anselm turns the page, and the ruined Parliament fades into a private chamber where Prime Minister William Lyon Mackenzie King waits beside a crystal ball, hoping his dead mother has advice about the living. The portrait's eyes remain open, while the room around you settles into velvet shadow. Heavy curtains cover the windows, shutting out Ottawa's winter night, and a coal fire glows beneath a marble mantel crowded with photographs, letters, and small objects arranged with almost devotional care. You stand beside the half-burned candle. Across the room, William Lyon Mackenzie King sits at a polished table. He is Prime Minister, statesman, diarist, bachelor, collector of ruins, admirer of dogs, and a man who believes the dead may still answer sensible questions if approached with sufficient patience. King lifts a crystal ball from a padded box. It is clear, round, and surprisingly ordinary, though candlelight gathers inside it like trapped mist. Beside the sphere lie a planchette, several pencils, a stack of paper, and photographs of people he has loved and lost. His mother's portrait stands nearest. Another frame holds his father. Nearby is the image of a little dog named Pat. King does not advertise these habits publicly. By day, he discusses tariffs, elections, war, labor, and the machinery of government. By night, he records dreams, omens, seances, table rappings, and messages he believes may come from beyond death. The room smells of beeswax, old paper furniture polish, and the faint medicinal sweetness of lavender water. A silver tray holds tea, coarse biscuits, and a small dish of preserved fruit. King takes one biscuit, forgets to eat it, and places it beside the crystal ball, as if the spirits might require refreshment. A medium sits opposite him, hands resting upon the table. Lamps are lowered. Everyone waits. The fire clicks. Pipes murmur in the walls. Somewhere beyond the curtains a carriage passes over frozen ground. The medium asks for silence. You hear 3 taps. They may come from the table. They may come from the pipes. No one can quite agree whether spirits prefer oak furniture or merely benefit from buildings with unreliable heating. He asks whether his mother is present. The medium closes her eyes. A pencil shifts across paper. Letters appear, slowly, unevenly forming words of comfort. King listens with complete seriousness, his face softened by hope. To modern eyes, the scene may seem strange, but the habit belongs to a broad world of spiritualism that flourishes after the 19th century. Seances appear in parlours, halls, drawing rooms, and rented chambers. Some mediums are sincere, some are skilled performers, some may be both. He wonders about political decisions, personal relationships, elections, and the character of people around him. Yet he does not simply obey every message. He compares impressions, dreams, coincidences, and his own judgment. Even now it is hard to tell how much these rituals shape actual policy and how much they soothe a lonely man after difficult days. King studies its reflections, searching for faces and forms. He watches light move across the glass and records what he thinks he sees. A shadow may become a profile, a glimmer may resemble an eye. A cloud inside the sphere may suggest a figure standing in mist. Some swear that crystal gazing requires fasting beforehand. Others recommend washing the sphere in rainwater, covering it with black silk, or placing mugwort beneath the table to sharpen inner sight. King prefers careful notes, good lighting, and persistence, which is perhaps the most bureaucratic approach ever taken toward the supernatural. For a moment, you see the monastery corridor, its cold stones shining under torchlight. Brother Anselm walks past, carrying the Northern Atlas. Behind him follows the suspicious monk from the guest house, though you were fairly certain Anselm was the suspicious monk. He writes constantly, filling thousands of pages over decades. He records public events, private emotions, illnesses, dreams, spiritual experiences, and conversations with people living and dead. The diaries become an extraordinary map of his inner life, though he likely never expects strangers to read every path upon it. The rooms are quiet after midnight, wool rugs soften your steps. An iron key turns in a cabinet containing correspondence and spiritualist materials. King sets photographs upon a table including one of his mother and another of Leonardo da Vinci, whom he sometimes feels connected to through signs and impressions. In older households, bells are rung to summon servants, mark prayer warn of fire, or drive away harmful spirits. Here the bell rings once without visible touch. The dog looks at you, you look at the dog. Neither of you volunteers an explanation. King consults mediums. He attends seances while traveling. He seeks messages associated with his mother, former leaders, and others whose judgment he values. He also studies dreams and coincidences, treating unusual events as possible symbols. A clock stopping at a particular hour may carry meaning. The shape of clouds may carry meaning. The placement of stones, ruined arches, birds, flowers, numbers and chance encounters may all enter the private language through which he interprets his life. At Kingsmere, his estate in the Gatineau Hills, he gathers old architectural fragments and constructs romantic ruins. Stone arches stand among trees. Broken columns frame paths. Salvaged pieces from demolished buildings become temples' walls and gateways without ordinary purpose. Mist lies among the pines. Frost whitens the grass. The ruins appear ancient, despite being carefully assembled. A roadside shrine would not feel out of place. King moves slowly between stones, seeing memory where others might see masonry. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether he is eccentric, deeply spiritual, painfully lonely, or simply more honest in his diaries than most powerful people dare to be. Perhaps all answers fit. He remains Canada's longest-serving Prime Minister. He guides the country through depression and war. His private rituals do not prevent hard political calculation, compromise, secrecy, or ordinary ambition. She says King's mother offers reassurance. The Prime Minister closes his eyes. The room grows still. Outside Parliament's rebuilt tower shines above the snow, its clock measuring time for the living, while this circle listens for those beyond it. Within it appears a warehouse door secured by iron locks, rows of barrels, and a sweetness so rich it seems to thicken the air. Brother Anselm turns the atlas page. King's chamber fades, the bell falls silent, and you step into Canada's great maple reserve, where thieves are about to steal a fortune, one barrel at a time. The warehouse door stands taller than a castle gate banded with iron, and furred at the edges with winter frost. Behind it rows of barrels recede into darkness, each one filled with amber syrup gathered from maple forests when spring loosens the snow. You step inside beside the dog. The air is cool, sweet, and wooden. Lanterns hang from beams far above. Brother Anselm's voice drifts through the sweetness. This is not an ordinary storehouse. It belongs to the Federation of Quebec Maple Syrup Producers, an organization that manages a strategic reserve intended to stabilize supply and price when harvests rise and fall. Maple syrup, which seems gentle enough upon porridge, is valuable in great quantity. Here thousands of barrels rest like treasure chests without decorative dragons. The year is 2011. Outside, snow lies over Saint-Louis de Blanford. Trucks move along frozen roads. Farmers sleep beside wood stoves after tending equipment and checking sugar bushes. In late winter and early spring, maple sap runs when days grow mild and nights freeze. It is collected, boiled, and reduced until many measures of clear sap become one measure of dark syrup. People have long watched weather trees and moonlight for signs of the season. Some swear sap runs strongest beneath a waxing moon. Others hang a small iron nail near the evaporator to discourage souring, though iron nails have rarely displayed authority over chemistry. Inside the warehouse, someone has begun stealing. The thieves do not arrive with swords masks or a battering ram. They arrive with access patients, trucks, pumps, and the useful appearance of men conducting normal business. Quiet crime often wears work boots. They rent space in the same warehouse complex. This gives them a reason to come and go. They learn the routines, the locks, the loading areas, and the long hours when few people watch. You follow them between the barrels. At first, they remove full barrels of syrup and replace them with barrels containing water. Some are left empty. Others are refilled with something less valuable, then returned to their places, so the rows still appear complete. A barrel weighs hundreds of pounds. Moving one requires equipment planning and confidence. Moving thousands requires a particular relationship with audacity. The thieves load syrup onto trucks and carry it away in stages, not over one wild night, but across months. Outside the warehouse, the stolen syrup enters legitimate markets. It is transported to buyers in Canada and beyond. Documents change hands. Barrels are resold. The sweetness flows through warehouses, distributors, and merchants until stolen syrup becomes almost impossible to distinguish from honest syrup. No one standing at a breakfast table can look into a jug and know whether it has passed through the largest maple theft in history. The dog sniffs one barrel, sneezes, and loses interest. You walk with the clerk as he continues counting. He does not notice that some barrels sound wrong. A full syrup barrel answers a knock with a dense, heavy tone. Water sounds different. An empty barrel sounds like a small wooden chapel awaiting a sermon. Months pass. Winter fades. Mud returns to the roads. Bees hum near the eaves. In another part of the province, syrup is poured over pancakes, stirred into glazes, and sold in leaf-shaped bottles to travellers who believe every Canadian forest contains a polite tap. The warehouse remains quiet. Then, in July 2012, inspectors begin taking inventory. They move through the aisles, checking seals and testing barrels. One inspector climbs upon a stack and nearly falls when a barrel expected to be heavy shifts too easily. Suspicion spreads. Barrels are opened. Some contain water. Some contain nothing. The reserve has been hollowed from within. You stand beneath the lanterns while officials calculate the loss. Nearly 10,000 barrels have been taken, containing around 3,000 tons of syrup. The stolen goods are valued at roughly 18 million Canadian dollars. The number enters reports newspapers, police files, and jokes told by people who have never tried lifting a syrup barrel before breakfast. Investigators begin tracing trucks, warehouses, contracts, and sales. The inquiry expands across provinces and borders. Police search properties, barrels are found. Records reveal movements that once seemed ordinary. Informants speak. Suspects are arrested. Those who tell the tale never fully agree on the exact role played by every participant. Some claim they handled syrup without knowing it was stolen. Others accuse one another. Even now, it is hard to tell how many people understood the full scheme at each stage. One central figure is Richard Vallières. He is accused of helping move and sell enormous quantities of stolen syrup. Courts later convict him of theft, fraud, and trafficking stolen property. Other men are also convicted or plead guilty. The legal struggle continues over punishment and money. Judges consider how much profit was made and how much should be repaid. Fines reach into millions, appeals travel through courts. The case eventually reaches the Supreme Court of Canada over the calculation of a fine in lieu of forfeiture. The language becomes less romantic than treasure hunting. There are invoices, proceeds, replacement values, transactions, and accounting. No map bears a red cross. No skeleton guards the loot. The fiercest beast in the tale is compound paperwork. Still, much of the syrup is recovered. Barrels return to guarded storage, locks improve, inspections become stricter. The reserve survives, and maple syrup continues flowing from forests into evaporators, tins, bottles, and kitchens. You rest beside a small stove near the loading bay. A worker pours hot water into a mug and sweetens it with a spoonful of syrup. The drink is simple and warm. Outside, harness bells sound as a teamster crosses the yard, though no horse-drawn cart belongs in this century. The Atlas does not mind. Brother Anselm closes one iron lock and tests another. The dog curls beneath a barrel marked with chalk. Somewhere above, wind presses against the roof. For a moment, the warehouse feels like a monastery treasury, except the relics are edible and considerably easier to sell. The sweet air begins to cool, lanterns dim, barrel hoops become shadows. Beyond the loading door, snow gathers around a village square where banners snap above carved ice. A crowned figure waits upon a platform, and townspeople prepare to put winter itself on trial. Snow gathers around the village square until every roof cart and market stall wears a white cap. Banners snap above the lane, torches burn inside iron baskets, their flames bending low beneath the wind, and a wooden platform stands before an ice palace whose walls glow blue in the evening. You step through the gate beside the dog. A herald in a fur-lined cloak strikes a staff upon the frozen ground. Behind him waits a crowned figure, dressed in white with a red sash, a broad smile, and a head shaped rather like an enormous snowball wearing a cap. Brother Anselm whispers through the atlas, "This is Bonhomme Carnaval, the ruler of Quebec's winter carnival." He does not govern taxes, armies, or grain. He governs parades, snow sculptures, canoe races, music, and the dangerous belief that cold becomes pleasant when enough people wear bright sashes. The modern Quebec winter carnival grows during the 20th century. Though winter celebrations in the region reach much farther back. Long before electric lights and organized programs, neighbors gather during the hardest months for feasts, dances, sleigh rides, songs, and shared warmth. When snow blocks roads and darkness arrives early, celebration becomes a way to challenge the season without pretending it is gentle. You enter the square. Vendors serve pea soup, meat pies, coarse bread, hot drinks, and maple syrup cooled upon snow until it becomes sticky taffy. Children are absent from your immediate path, leaving the field to adults wrapped in wool, fur-knitted caps, and boots thick enough to survive a minor siege. A woman ties an arrow-patterned sash around your waist. The ceinture fletchie once helps voyageurs support their backs and secure winter clothing. Here it marks festival spirit. Some swear the colours carry luck on frozen roads. Others say the sash mainly prevents one's cloak from opening at precisely the wrong gust. A bell rings. The royal procession begins. Bonhomme waves from a sleigh while musicians march behind him. Drums echo between stone houses. Brasser instruments shine beneath torchlight. Snow falls into open mouths and polished bells. Townspeople cheer as though winter has been captured, tried before a manor court, and sentenced to entertain everyone until spring. No one can quite agree whether winter accepts the judgment. Beyond the square rises the ice palace. Workers build it from blocks cut-shaped and stacked into towers, halls, arches, and battlements. Coloured lamps shine through frozen walls. You pass beneath a gateway where frost feathers the ceiling. The dog examines an ice throne, decides it lacks a cushion, and sits on your boots instead. Inside, visitors drink from small, hollow canes. The cane contains caribou, a warming mixture traditionally associated with the carnival, often made with red wine and stronger spirits. You take only a cautious sip. It tastes like a monastery cellar has negotiated a peace treaty with a berry field. Outside, the strangest contest is beginning. Men and women in bathing clothes stand beside a high bank of fresh snow. The temperature rests far below comfort. Spectators stamp their boots and shout encouragement. At a signal, the contestants plunge into the snow, roll across it, throw white powder over bare shoulders, and smile with the rigid determination of saints undergoing an unnecessary trial. Some swear the snow bath strengthens the blood. Others claim it proves courage. Even now it is hard to tell whether courage and poor judgment are distant cousins or the same person wearing different hats. You remain sensibly inside your cloak. The festival moves toward the frozen St. Lawrence River. Their teams prepare heavy canoes for an extraordinary race. In summer, a canoe belongs upon water. In winter, the river is clogged with ice slush, moving channels and jagged flows. The racers must paddle through open water, drag the canoe across ice, leap aboard again, and repeat the struggle while wind cuts across the river. Leather straps secure their boots, wool steams beneath outer clothing, hands grip wooden gunnels. Each team watches the shifting route because the river changes from moment to moment. The starting signal sounds. Canoes scrape over ice. Crews run, push paddle, stumble, recover, and haul themselves forward. The contest looks like a pilgrimage designed by someone who distrusts roads. Spectators ring bells from the shore while officials peer through blowing snow. Those who tell the tale never fully agree which skill matters most. Strength, balance, knowledge of currents, or willingness to climb repeatedly into freezing water. Every answer seems correct. Night settles, but the celebration continues. Across Canada, other towns answer winter with their own customs. Ottawa turns the frozen Rideau Canal into a long skating route. Winnipeg builds warming huts and snow sculptures. In Yukon communities, festivals celebrate northern endurance with axe throwing, flower packing dog teams, and contests whose rules appear to have been written beside a warm stove. At one gathering, participants race while carrying heavy sacks. At another, bearded competitors display frozen whiskers. Elsewhere, people throw chainsaws, climb poles, or compete to make tea over open fires. Some traditions begin as practical tests from logging camps, trap lines, farms, and long winter journeys. Others begin because February lasts too long and someone owns a stopwatch. You return to the square near midnight. The ice palace glows beneath stars. Bonhomme stands upon the platform while villagers sing. Bells from a nearby church mingle with drums and laughter. A market woman hands you a trencher, holding tourtière, its crust warm against your cold fingers. Nearby, an old man hangs a small evergreen branch above his door. He says green needles remind winter that life has not surrendered. His grandmother also scattered salt on the threshold to keep storms from entering the house. The storm outside appears respectful enough to use the chimney. Brother Anselm joins you beside a watchfire. For a while you warm your hands in silence. Wet wool steams, snow melts from the dog's ears. The half-burned candle rests inside the monk's lantern, still bending northward. Then the carnival bell sounds 3 slow strokes. The banners fade. The ice palace becomes moonlit mist. Beyond, the village fields stretch toward a lonely road beneath a sky crowded with stars. A bright object descends without sound toward the forest, and a man beside a lake raises one hand against an impossible light. The bright object lowers beyond the pines, turning the forest floor silver without touching a single branch. Frost shines upon moss stones and the dark edge of Falcon Lake. The air becomes strangely still, as though even the wind has paused to listen. You stand beside a narrow trail in eastern Manitoba. The year is 1967, though. Brother Anselm's atlas wraps the scene in old wool lantern smoke and the hush of a pilgrimage road. Ahead walks a man named Stefan Michalak, carrying prospecting tools, food matches, and the practical suspicion that every promising rock is hiding either treasure or disappointment. He has come searching for quartz and silver. The morning begins quietly. Birds move among the trees. Water lies dark beyond the shore. Pine resin clings to the air. Michalak chips at stone, studies the ground, and eats coarse bread beside a small fire. The dog waits hopefully near his pack, though the bread belongs to a century and a traveller neither of you technically know. Then 2 glowing objects appear in the sky. They move with a brilliance unlike ordinary aircraft. One continues away, the other descends toward a flat, rocky area nearby, changing from reddish light to silver metal as it settles. No one can quite agree how best to describe its shape. Some call it oval, others say saucer-like. Michalak later speaks of a smooth craft with no obvious wings, perhaps 10 meters across, resting near the ground. Its surface seems polished, reflecting the forest in warped lines. You follow him closer. The object gives off heat. A smell of sulfur hangs in the air. A door or opening appears along its side, spilling purple or white light. From within come voices muffled and unfamiliar. Michalak calls out in English. There is no answer. He tries Polish, Russian, German, Ukrainian, and Italian, hoping perhaps that visitors from the stars have studied European languages but neglected local maps. The voices continue briefly, then stop. Brother Anselm's candle flickers inside his lantern. Michalak steps nearer and looks through the opening. He sees lights and panels arranged within, though he notices no people. The interior seems bright and ordered, more workshop than throne room. Medieval travelers often describe fairy hills filled with music, shining chambers, and beings who vanish before questions can be asked. The resemblance is uncomfortable, though no fairy tale ever required so many language attempts. The opening closes. The craft rotates slightly. A panel covered with small holes faces Michalak. Hot air strikes him. His shirt and undershirt begin to burn in a grid pattern across his chest. The telling remains soft. You hear only the rush of heat, the crackle of cloth, and Michalak stumbling backward onto the rock. The object rises, lifting needles and dust beneath it, then vanishes beyond the trees. Silence returns too quickly. Michalak tears away the burning fabric. He feels sick, dizzy, and weak. The metallic smell remains in his throat. He tries to gather his belongings, becomes disoriented, and begins the long walk back toward help. You move beside him, through the forest. The path seems longer now. Trees repeat themselves, shadows stretch over stones. At one point, he vomits. At another, he rests against a trunk while insects move through the grass with complete indifference to possible visitors from another world. A roadside shrine appears beneath an ash tree, though it cannot truly belong here. Someone has hung a small iron cross and dried rowan berries upon it. Old custom says rowan protects travellers from enchantment. You touch the berries as you pass. The dog touches nothing and maintains a safer policy. Michalak eventually reaches civilization and receives medical attention. Doctors examine burns upon his chest arranged in a regular pattern. He reports headaches, nausea, weakness, and unusual weight loss. Authorities question him. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police investigate. Military officials study the site. Journalists arrive. Skeptics, believers, neighbors, and curious visitors begin offering explanations. Some suggest a secret aircraft. Some suspect a hoax. Others imagine a hallucination, an accident involving mining equipment or contact with something genuinely unknown. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether every physical detail supports Michalak's account. Burn patterns, melted materials, radioactive traces, and objects found at the site are interpreted differently by different investigators. Even now, it is hard to tell where observation ends and expectation begins. Brother Anselm turns the atlas slightly, and other Canadian lights appear across the parchment. At Shag Harbour in Nova Scotia, also in 1967, witnesses see glowing objects descend toward the ocean. Some believe an aircraft has crashed. Rescue crews search the water and find foam but no wreckage. Years later, stories grow around the event. Divers, military vessels, secret recovery operations, and underwater movement enter retellings. Official documents confirm that authorities investigated an unidentified object, but the larger legends remain difficult to prove. Farther west and north, pilots, police officers, farmers, and isolated travelers report strange lights over forests, lakes, and frozen roads. Many sightings have ordinary causes: stars near the horizon, meteors, aircraft, satellites, weather balloons, reflections, or the patient mischief of clouds. A few remain unresolved. You sit beside Falcon Lake as night deepens. A watchfire burns low between stones. Brother Anselm warms his hands. The dog curls beneath your cloak, finally exhausted by mysteries that refuse to provide edible conclusions. Across the water, stars tremble in black reflections. One light moves slowly above the trees. It could be an aircraft. It could be a satellite. It could be something farther away than distance feels. Some swear the Falcon Lake incident is Canada's most compelling close encounter because it leaves marks, witnesses, reports, and years of unanswered questions. Others say strange evidence is not the same as extraordinary proof. The atlas offers no verdict. It only preserves the lonely trail, the silver object, the pattern of burns, and the long silence after departure. At last, the moving light fades. Mist rises from the lake and becomes sea fog. Pine trees shorten into wind-bent coastal scrub. Waves begin striking rock below a dark island, and lanterns appear where treasure hunters gather around a shaft that fills with water no matter how carefully they dig. Brother Anselm lifts the half-burned candle. Its flame leans toward Oak Island. The tide waits below. The tide waits below while sea fog folds itself around Oak Island, hiding the shoreline and revealing it again in pale fragments. Waves strike the rocks with a slow, hollow rhythm. Lanterns move among spruce trees, and men in wool coats gather around a shaft lined with timber darkened by damp. You step ashore beside Brother Anselm. The dog follows, reluctantly placing each paw as if the island has personally offended him. Salt wind pulls at your cloak. Somewhere inland a pulley creaks above a pit, and the sound travels through the trees like an old gate opening underground. The story begins in 1795. A young man named Daniel McGinnis notices a depression in the earth beneath an old oak. According to later tellings, a block hangs from a branch overhead, suggesting someone once used a rope and tackle there. McGinnis returns with friends John Smith and Anthony Vaughan, and the three begin digging. They find disturbed soil. At intervals they uncover layers of logs laid across the shaft. The pattern appears deliberate. Every few meters another platform waits below, as though someone has built a wooden staircase for patience rather than feet. No one can quite agree which details belong to the earliest work and which enter the story years later. The original records are thin, memories grow longer than documents, yet the whole remains, and so does the suspicion that something valuable lies beneath it. You stand beside the young diggers as they raise baskets of earth. Their tools are simple shovels, picks rope, and a windlass. Coarse bread rests upon a stump. A clay jug holds water. One man carries a small charm of knotted cord, said to prevent cave-ins if tied with 9 knots before sunrise. The shaft shows no respect for knots, but the man ties them anyway. The first attempt stops when the pit becomes too deep and difficult. Years pass. New companies arrive with stronger equipment and greater confidence, which is often how old mysteries acquire new depths. In the early 19th century, workers dig again. They reach more wooden platforms and discover materials said to include charcoal putty and coconut fiber. The coconut fiber causes particular wonder. Coconuts do not grow on Nova Scotian shores. Some believe the fiber was used as part of an elaborate drainage system. Others argue that later excavation contamination or mistaken identification may explain it. Even now it is hard to tell whether every strange object comes from the original builder's later searchers, or the island's talent for rearranging expectations. At around 90 feet, according to famous accounts, workers find a stone marked with unusual symbols. The stone becomes one of Oak Island's most disputed relics. Some claim its inscription promises treasure below. Some remember it displayed in a shop. Others search for it and fail. The symbols are copied, translated, altered, and repeated until the stone becomes almost more legend than object. Brother Anselm would distrust it immediately. He has already carried one relic no one trusts, and his patience for suspicious inscriptions is limited. The diggers continue. Then water enters the shaft. At first it seeps. Soon it rises faster than buckets can remove it. Pumps fail. Workers suspect that artificial flood tunnels connect the ocean to the pit designed to protect whatever lies below. They trace drains towards Smith's Cove, where layers of beach material seem arranged to draw seawater inland. The idea is ingenious and terrifying. Every effort to remove water appears to invite more. New shafts are dug nearby. Tunnels are driven towards the original pit. Some collapse, others flood. Tools disappear into mud. Timbers shift. The island accepts labor money and optimism without promising anything in return. You descend partway along a ladder. Cold air rises from below. Lantern light touches wet beams and black water. The dog remains above, demonstrating the rare wisdom of refusing an adventure. From the darkness comes the slow drip of seawater. Searchers believe they find pieces of chain, parchment, wood, metal, and other clues. Drill fragments bring up material interpreted as oak, loose earth, or traces of something made by human hands. Each discovery renews hope. Each uncertainty produces another company. Treasure theories multiply. Perhaps Captain Kidd buried pirate gold here. Perhaps French treasure arrived after a war. Perhaps British soldiers hid military funds. Some suggest Spanish silver royal jewels, Templar relics, Shakespearean manuscripts, or the lost treasures of people who would likely be surprised to learn they had visited Nova Scotia. Those who tell the tale never fully agree which theory is most unlikely. The island passes through generations of searchers. In the 19th and 20th centuries, steam pumps, drills, explosives, cranes, and heavy machinery replace rope and hand tools. The landscape becomes scarred with shafts, trenches, roads, and spoil heaps. Maps grow crowded with names: the Money Pit, Smith's Cove, Borehole, 10X, the swamp, the uplands. Accidents occur. Men die during the long search, including 4 in 1965, after gas and water overcome them in a shaft. Their loss adds solemn weight to the legend and feeds a belief that 7 people must die before the treasure can be found. The origin of this curse is uncertain, and it appears in popular retellings more clearly than in early records. Brother Anselm lowers his lantern. The shaft walls glisten. You hear machinery above, then older sounds beneath it: shovels, whispered prayers, rope sliding over wood, and the tired breathing of men who believe the next basket may change everything. Modern exploration continues with sonar cameras, metal detectors, drilling, and archaeological study. Searchers uncover roads, coins tools, fragments of wood, old structures and artifacts from different periods. Some findings are genuinely intriguing. None has yet revealed the vast treasure promised by centuries of imagination. The mystery survives because absence is spacious. A missing chest can hold anything. A flooded tunnel can conceal every answer. A broken tool may be evidence, accident, or merely a broken tool. The island never says enough to end the story. You return to the surface near dawn. Fog drifts through spruce branches. The half-burned candle glows inside Brother Anselm's lantern. Behind you the pit fills quietly with dark water once again. Ahead, a narrow causeway leads back towards the mainland. Beneath fading stars, the northern atlas has only one page left. The causeway lies pale beneath the first light, joining Oak Island to the mainland, while the tide withdraws through weed and stone. Behind you, the flooded shaft darkens under fog. Ahead, Brother Anselm walks with the northern atlas beneath his cloak, and the dog trots beside him, as though avoiding every danger has solved every mystery. You follow the road inland. Dawn spreads over farms, forests, and roofs. Smoke rises from chimneys. A cart creaks toward market with apples, smoked fish, and coarse bread beneath canvas. The driver touches two fingers to a roadside shrine where a weathered saint raises one broken hand above travellers. Some swear greeting a roadside saint before sunrise prevents wheels from cracking. The cart's left wheel begins squeaking, suggesting either weak faith or overdue maintenance. Brother Anselm says little. The atlas's final page remains blank, except for a painted road leading southeast-west and somehow north together. When wind lifts, the parchment shapes move beneath it, a circus tent collapsing in rain, a wooden pig above a lumber gate, 5 cradles beneath white blankets, and one figure crossing frozen wilderness. You recognize every place. Toronto's tavern smells of ale and wet wool. The Great Stork Derby leaves lawyers counting lives as though children were coins. Quintland's locked gates stand too close to a family home. Halifax wakes beneath a stopped clock. The Quebec Bridge stretches above iron, resting below the river. Parliament's library doors remain closed against remembered flame. Mackenzie King waits beside his crystal ball. Barrels of maple syrup sit behind stronger locks. Bonhomme rules a kingdom of snow. Falcon Lake holds stars in black water. Oak Island fills every shaft offered to it. The stories sound invented when spoken quickly. Brother Anselm says truth becomes unbelievable when stripped of ordinary surroundings. A riot involving clowns seems absurd until pride, drink rivalry, and a crowded tavern surround it. A prime minister consulting ghosts seems impossible until grief, loneliness, fashion, and private faith stand beside him. The Atlas is not a book of miracles, it is a book of people. People make foolish wagers, build enormous bridges, ignore warnings, preserve children, Exploit children, chase strangers through winter. Watch burning ships, trust iron doors, consult spirits, steal sweetness, challenge. Cold search the skies and dig holes the sea patiently refills. No one can quite agree whether the strangest part is what happened or how reasonable every choice appeared at the time. By midday, the road reaches a forest track. Rain becomes sleet, then snow. Telegraph wires fade into bare branches. Motor roads narrow into ruts. Warehouses become timber storehouses with iron keys. The dog's collar becomes leather, though his appetite remains timeless. You stop beside a roadside fire shared by pilgrims. One traveller wears a scallop shell badge, another carries herbs tied with red thread. They offer you pottage of oats and leeks. A woman adds rosemary, saying it strengthens memory and prevents wandering dreams from slipping into the trees. Brother Anselm opens the atlas beside the flames. Its painted images have become smaller and still. Toronto is a dot beneath a gate. Halifax is a silver harbour, no wider than your hand. The bridge resembles a black stitch across blue water. Falcon Lake holds one spark. The monk writes in the blank margin with an ink-stained quill. He records that some tales are proven by documents, ruins, court records, photographs, and scars. Others remain tangled in memory, rumour mistakes, and later embellishment. Even now it is hard to tell whether every carved pig, mysterious inscription, moving light, or whispered message belongs entirely to fact. Yet uncertainty does not make every tale false. Sometimes it only shows where candlelight ends. The pilgrims move on. Snow deepens. You continue toward the monastery while afternoon bells reach you beyond the hills. Their sound recalls the journey's beginning, slow bronze, distant and patient. At dusk, familiar walls rise above frozen reeds. The gatekeeper lifts his lantern. Oak doors open. Horses breathe mist in the yard. Smoke gathers beneath the stable roof, and damp straw clings to your boots as before. The guest house waits with rushes on stone floors, wool blankets, barley broth, and the half-burned candle beside St. Brendan's doubtful relic. Brother Anselm carries the atlas into the library. Ink-stained scribes sleep over unfinished pages. Beeswax flames glow between shelves. The iron-bound chest stands open. He wraps the book in sealskin and lowers it inside. The key turns. The sound is small, but the northern world settles with it. You return to the hearth and sit beneath soot-black rafters. The dog circles upon the rushes, then folds himself against your feet. Outside, wind brushes snow along the monastery wall. A final bell marks the hour felt rather than heard. Your cloak dries slowly. Your hands are warm now, resting beneath the wool blanket, and there is nothing left to carry. Across the frozen roads, the circus wagons have vanished beyond the town gate. The wooden pig hangs quietly. The 5 cradles are still. The harbour lies beneath snow. The bridge holds. The library doors remain closed. The crystal ball reflects only candlelight. Far to the north, rivers sleep beneath ice. Far to the east, Tidewater moves around the island stones. Above every forest, village, harbour, and lonely lake, night gathers without hurry, covering strange truths and doubtful legends with the same gentle darkness. Brother Anselm lowers the candle wick, the room becomes softer, the fire settles into red embers, and each small sound drifts farther away. The turning of one page, the sigh of old wood, the faint breath of the dog, the last whisper of wind beneath the door. You no longer need to decide which story is strangest. You do not need to solve the lights above Falcon Lake, find the treasure beneath Oak Island, identify the mad trapper, or learn whether a ghost truly touched the bell. The questions can remain where they are. Let them rest beneath snow, behind iron doors, under black water, and within the closed atlas. Your breathing slows. The monastery stones hold the night outside. The blanket grows heavier and warmer. Smoke fades among the rafters. Somewhere beyond sleep, a distant bell rings once, then disappears into silence. The candle becomes a small, golden point. Then even that light grows dim.